the secrets. We are reading the book of Revelation, and we begin with chapter 16, verse 1. And I heard a great voice out of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, saying to the seven Malachim, Go your ways, and pour out the vials of the wrath of Yahweh upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the province of the Middle East, and there fell a noisome and grievous sores upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which bowed before his emblem. 3. And the second Malach poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of the dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. 4. And the third Malach poured out his vial upon the rivers and the fountains of waters, and they became blood. 5. And I heard the Malach of the Ma'im, the water, say, You are righteous, the one who is and who was, because you have judged thus. 6. For they have shed the blood of the Kadoshim, the set-apart saints, and the prophets, and you have given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. 7. And I heard another out of the altar say, Even so, Master Yahweh, El-Shaddai, Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments. 8. And the fourth Malach poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given to him to scorch with fire. 9. And the men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of Yahweh, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth Malach poured out his vial upon the sea of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the name of Elohim of Shamayim, the heavens, because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. 12. And the sixth Malach poured out his vial upon the great river Pharat, Euphrates, and the Ma'im, the water there, was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. 13. And I saw 3 unclean Ruhr, unclean spirits or demonic spirits, like frogs, come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the Ruachot, unclean spirits of demons, working miracles, which go forth to the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to battle of that great day of Yahweh El-Shaddai Almighty. 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed will be he that guards and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. 16. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Har Megiddo, Hill of Armageddon. 17. And the seventh Malach poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, from the throne, saying, It is done. 18. And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, and so great. 19. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and Babylon the Great came into remembrance before Elohim, to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. 20. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of the Shamayim, the heavens, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed Yahweh because of the plague of the hail, for the plague was exceedingly great. So there ends chapter 16. So if we go back, we'll have a look at some of the footnotes from chapter 16. So the first footnote in verse 1, and I heard a great voice out of the Beth Hamikdash temple, saying to the 7 Malachim, the angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of Yahweh upon the earth. So we've got a footnote here next to the word earth. So the day of Yahweh is at hand. So now Yahweh is going to obviously bring his judgments down on those who are coming to make war against Israel. So the next footnote we have here is next to the word Middle East. So verse 2, and the first went and poured out his vial upon the province of the Middle East. Let's have a look at this. So for this we need to go to Revelation 11 and 10. So if I just skip back to 11 and 10, just give me 1 second. Okay, 11 and 10 reads, and they that dwell upon the province of the Middle East shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these 2 prophets tormented them that dwelt on the land. So let's quickly have a look at the footnotes here. And shall send gifts one to another. So let's have a look at this footnote. The Palestinian people will rejoice and send candy to each other and gifts to celebrate the death of these 2 prophets. And we know these 2 prophets are Elijah and Zerubbabel. So let's have a look at the next footnote. Which is, because these 2 prophets tormented them that dwell on the land. So let's have a look at this, on the land. So the land here is Israel. So we know that the 2 prophets will obviously be prophesying in Israel, and when they are killed, the Palestinian people will be rejoicing. Okay? So let's go back to chapter 16. And we have a footnote here in verse 2. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the province of the Middle East, and there fell a noise and grievous sores upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which bowed before his emblem. So let's have a look at this word, emblem. A nuclear strike that will cause disease and sores in the Middle East. Likely area is Iraq and Syria, which will cause a nuclear fallout, and the Farad, the Euphrates River, will dry up. The emblem is Mecca. So here you have it. And upon them which bow before the emblem. So we know people go up to Mecca, obviously, to make pilgrimage. And this is what we're talking about, the emblem. The emblem is Mecca. Okay? So let's go to the next footnote here. So we have verse 4. And the 3rd Malach poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. So let's have a look at this footnote for blood. All these signs will come about with wars. So this word blood is a resembling word for war. Okay. So it became blood. So verse 5, and I heard the Malach of the Ma'im, the water, say, you are righteous, the one who is and who was, because you have judged thus. So let's have a look at this word, thus. The manuscript's missing master and shall be. So the manuscripts are missing master and shall be. So you have judged thus, but also missing master and shall be. Okay, let's have a look at the 3rd footnote. So verse 10, And the fifth Malach poured out his vial upon the sea of the beast and his kingdom, and was full of darkness. And they gnawed their tongues for pain. So the seat of the beast, let's have a look at this. The two main seats of the beast are the two set apart places of Islam, Mecca in Saudi Arabia and Iraq, where they have the set apart mosques. Babylon includes these areas. There will be a nuclear strike on these regions to obliterate this area of Saudi Arabia completely, that they will never be inhabited. So the seat of the beast is a reference to these areas, yeah? Saudi Arabia and Babylon, which we know is Iraq as well, yeah? Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is verse 11. And blasphemed the Elohim of Shemaim, the heavens, because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. So let's have a look at this word, repented not of their deeds. So here we have, even after all this, the radical Muslims do not repent and still blaspheme Elohim. So they're still repenting not this, and they're still blaspheming Elohim. So obviously this is going to bring more judgment. So let's have a look at the next footnote, which is in verse 12. And the sixth Malach, the sixth angel, poured out his vial upon the river, the great river, Pharat, Euphrates. And the Mayim there, the water there, was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So let's have a look at this word, prepared. A nuclear strike will cause the waters to evaporate, and that will then bring the Muslim kings from the east, who will be furious to eradicate Israel and fight a jihad against the West, especially USA and the UK. So once this happens, then obviously the kings of the radical nations will come together, and then it will be all out war against the USA and the UK. So this is also could be looked at as the tribulation. Yeah? Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 13. And I saw three unclean ruachot, unclean demonic spirits, like frogs, come out of the mouth of the dragon. So demonic spirits like frogs. Let's have a look at this word, like frogs. The demonic spirits will cause the Muslims to go to various governments to raise support and allegiance to fight their cause. So like frogs, they hop from place to place. So this is what we're talking about, demonic spirits like frogs. So we know that these are obviously emissaries who will go into different Muslim nations to gather support, to fight on behalf of the radicals. Okay, for what has happened to, say, Syria and Iraq that have been bombed. And also the fact that the Euphrates has been, it is dried up. So these are now the kings that are coming together now, in the sense of the caliphate. Yeah? Okay, let's move on then. So the next footnote, in the same verse, like frogs came out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So let's have a look at this word, false prophet. The false prophet is another title for the anti-Messiah. Okay, so we know the anti-Messiah is coming from Turkey, so this is the false prophet we're talking about here. Yeah? the anti-Messiah. Okay, let's look to the next footnote. So verse 14. For they are the Ruach, unclean spirits of demons, working miracles which go forth to the kings of the earth and of the world, of the whole world, to gather them to battle of that great day of Yahweh, El-Shaddai, Almighty. So let's have a look at this word, El-Shaddai, Almighty. Note previous footnotes. These are Muslim nations that will help Muslims, and also communist types will also help out in giving weapons to them. So they're calling basically everybody to this war, to fight alongside them. This is the radicals, So they're going, for help everywhere possible around the world, that they can gather people to fight their cause in the name of Allah. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is verse 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed will be he that guards and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So let's have a look at this word, naked. Naked means to be without Torah and exposed. So if you haven't, or if you're not keeping the Torah, you are essentially naked in the eyes of Yahweh. You are exposed. So, guard and do, keep the commandments, and you will not be seen as naked. And the next footnote, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Let's have a look at this word, shame. The only way to watch is to keep Torah and to stay away from worldly sins. So like I said, it's time to keep the commandments. That way you will not be seen as naked, and also Hashem will not see your shame, or your shame will be obviously covered up. So in order to have the covering of Hashem, you need to be keeping the commandments. Right, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 11. And he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Ha-Megiddo, hill of Armageddon. Let's have a look at this, Armageddon. A place in the north of Israel, on the Jezreel plain. So this is obviously in Israel, Jezreel plain, the place which is called Armageddon. So we know Armageddon is where the radicals are going to be fighting, and this is the end time war. So this is the place in the Jezreel plain in Israel. Okay, let's go to the next footnotes. Verse 17. And the seventh Malach, angel, poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, from the throne, saying, it is done. So the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, let's have a look at this. The manuscripts omit of Shamayim, so the temple of heaven, or the heavens, So the next footnote is in verse 18. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great. So let's have a look at this, so great. Islam, Peace or Beast, at www.forever-israel.com by Rabbi Simon Altaf, page 135. So here we have Ezekiel 29:5 says, I will leave you in the wilderness, you and all the fish of your rivers, all his allies who cling to Egypt. You shall fall on the open field. You shall not be picked up or gathered. I have given you as a food to the beasts of the field and to the birds of the Shamayim, the heavens. This is a biblical symbolism where Elohim tells us that all the men who come up with the kings of Babylon will be killed by the master on the mountains of Israel, by the earthquake which is depicted in Ezekiel 38 and 20. So let's go to Ezekiel 38 and 20 and see what that reads. Excuse me. Ezekiel 38 and 20. So that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the Shemayim, the heaven, and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. So we've got a footnote here for the ground. This tied in with Daniel 9:26, the flood and the earthquake in Revelation 16, 18 and 19. So let's quickly go to Daniel 9 and 26. Let's have a look at that quickly. Daniel 9 and 26. And after the 62 weeks shall an anointed one be cut off and be no more. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end there shall be with a flood, and to the end of the wars washed and and fighting is determined. So let me read that again. And after the 62 weeks shall an anointed one be cut off and be no more. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end there shall be with a flood, and to the end of the war wastes and fighting is determined. So we've got two footnotes there, so I'll just look at the first footnote, which is 8. Vayin, lo, means he will lose something. The translation, not for himself, is not accurate, but means he will lose his life. The Messiah came and died for the people of Israel and was no more on the earth, now ruling in the heavens. The Messiah came and died for the people of Israel and not for himself. Okay, so we have another footnote here, 9. The flood is yet future to occur when the Muslims come and fight the battle with Israel. So this is a future prophecy in regards to the flood. So when the radicals come up to Israel to fight, there will be a major flood that will obviously wash many of them away and kill them. So this is the flood we're talking about, which is yet to come. This is a future prophecy. Okay. So let's go now to Ezekiel 29:10, which says, Indeed, therefore I am against you, and against your rivers, and I will make the land of Egypt utterly waste and desolate, from Migdol to Sinai, as far as the border of Cush. Neither foot of man shall pass through it, nor foot of beast pass through it, and it shall be uninhabited for 40 years. Elohim will waste Egypt and scatter them for 40 years. This has never happened before. This is the same way as Israel wandered outside Egypt as a result of their disobedience. Thus, for their hard-heartedness, the Egyptians will also suffer 40 years. So you see, this is another judgment that's coming for Egypt, who obviously will collude with the radicals and obviously come up to Israel to fight against Israel. So for that, Hashem is going to judge them in this way, that they will be wandering also for 40 years. for their hard-heartedness. So let's go to the last footnote, which is in verse 21. And there fell upon men a great hail out of the Shemayim, the heavens, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed Yahweh because of the plague of the hail, for the plague was exceedingly great. So let's have a look at this, exceedingly great. On Muslims who come up to fight, the plagues will be sent. The hails will be like big rocks, weighing anywhere from 60 to 120 pounds in weight. So this is going to be happening, obviously, when the war starts in Israel, when the radicals come up in Israel. These boulders will be sent by Hashem against those who come up to fight Israel. Okay, so that brings us to the end of chapter 16, and I thank you for watching and hope to see you on the other side. Thank you for watching. This is Rabbi Jeremy Beaton saying Shalom Shalom.